Bela, thank you for joining me.
Thank you so much for having me. This is actually so amazing to be here.
It's cool. I'm looking forward to this.
Thank you.
Tell me, who is Bela Fernandez?
That's a very loaded question. It's a hard one to explain because I feel like I'm a bit of everything, because obviously born in Brazil, came to the UK, been to many different high schools, I've wanted to do many different things. So I feel like I'm just a combination of a bunch of different segments of life experiences that I can't really give a word to. It's just a bit of a mix of everything.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not been boring, right? There's so much there.
No, there's quite a lot there.
Take me back to a young Bela and the kind of the journey from coming to the UK, if you like.
Well, obviously I was born in Brazil, in Rio, actually. And then I came to the UK, I think it was maybe 3, 4, 5, around that age.
Do you remember it? Do you remember pre-coming?
The only thing I remember was my first English word, which we were on the flight and my mum said to ask the lady for pasta. So I was like, can I have a pasta? And that was the first English I ever spoke, and I think I was like 4 years old. So that's like the first memory I have. But I can't really remember like early stages. I just know I went to primary school down in Devon, and then we moved kind of all over the country, like Devon, Manchester, Liverpool, just a bit of everywhere.
And why was that? Why were you moving?
I'm not too sure. I think initially we moved to Devon, but then my mum actually, her uncle lived in Manchester, so we wanted to be close to family. And I also moved around high school a lot because I just was very heavily bullied in a lot of high schools just because I was not English, which wasn't very nice.
That's really sad to hear.
Yeah,
so just purely because of your accent and probably not knowing much English?
Well, at the time, yeah, because obviously I had a really strong accent. I was just a little tiny kid. Obviously it's gone now because I've lived here my whole life pretty much. But yeah, they just, all the preconceptions, I guess, about Brazil, which is like favelas, drug dealers, this, that, like all of these terrible things. And I would kind of be called like very nasty names in regards to it. Or they would like go to the teachers and tell them that I had drugs. That I was like just a child, of course, I didn't even know what it meant. But they like would constantly try and get me in trouble for telling the teachers that like, oh, she's trying to sell drugs to people. I'm like, this is crazy.
That's proper cruel,
must have been like 11. I didn't even know what a drug was, you know.
How did you come out of that? I mean, when did that stop? I guess you learnt the language pretty quick. You know,
yeah.
I know, and we're going to get to it, you're sort of very innovative, very entrepreneurial. So I would imagine that was stimulated quite early on by a need to actually build some resilience and learn fast.
Definitely. I think I spent a lot of my childhood isolated from kids. Like I never felt like I belonged or I was, you know, part of the community. Like I was always feeling as if like I was the odd one out and that no one really wanted me there. And I felt that I had sort of an obligation to like prove everybody wrong and make my life how I want it to be and like not let all of the commentary and all of the nasty people at the time sort of influence where I went with life. Because in my head I was thinking like, if I am successful, then maybe like none of that would matter anymore because people would like me. So that was one of the reasons, not the entire reason, but one.
That's really interesting. I want to know the journey from the girl that was being bullied and clearly not enjoying that to then effectively almost putting 2 fingers up to judgment and going entrepreneurial, which you open yourself up by doing that, right? Particularly from a social media point of view. Dare I say that a lot of what happened to you when you were younger actually built your strength up to not really care too much, where social media is a wild west, right? So you're going to have people being nice, you're going to have people not being nice, depending on what you're doing. Am I right with that? You know, by the time you sort of ultimately made that decision to go entrepreneur and you've always wanted to be succul, there was a resilience that was built.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I don't think I would even remotely close have the life today that I have if all of those things didn't happen. Like if I wasn't bullied, I wouldn't be as strong. If I wasn't ridiculed, I wouldn't, you know, try and be successful. If they didn't make fun of the fact that like I didn't have much money, I wouldn't have much money now. So I'm thankful to them, to be honest, because I feel like it really
wouldn't change it.
No, absolutely not. Like
wouldn't wish it on anyone, but wouldn't change it.
Definitely would not wish it. Like if it was my daughter, like I don't have a daughter, but when I have one, it would really upset me because I know how terrible it is to go through it as a young kid. Like I pretty much just came home crying every day and didn't want to go to school.
Were your parents aware?
My mum was aware, but speaking to the school just made it 10 times worse. It was just a whole cycle. One time they like cut half my hair. It was really bad.
I'm not trying to take you back there too, but I think
okay.
I didn't actually know this about you.
Yeah.
I find that fascinating. I wanted to know where that that desire, I can see it in your eyes now, right? You know, the desire to be successful, the motivation to achieve. You know, it clearly comes from being suppressed, and dare I say, people that try to stop you doing that. So talk me through that. So you've come through school. What decision making did you make, and what influences sort of shaped your career, if you like?
Well, I don't really come from a very wealthy background. Like, my mum is absolutely fantastic. Like, she was a single mother, tried her absolute best, would be working a million different jobs, or like having a million different businesses that she was just trying to actually, get to take off the ground. And she really, really, really struggled. Like, I remember there sometimes just not being food on the table, or there was one time where all she could afford was a banana. And obviously she gave me the banana so I wouldn't starve as a kid. But I feel like that also really, really, really in my head was like, I cannot do the same. Like, I love my mum to pieces, and this is nothing against her at all. She did her absolute best, but I was like absolutely adamant that I did not want to live that life, that I wanted to be the person that changes things. And then also look after her as well, which I've now been able to do, which is very, very fulfilling. So yeah, I feel like that also really shaped me. And then put the bullying on top of that, and people would make fun of the fact that, like, for example, it was during the winter actually, and it was a very snowy day, and all I had was one pair of shoes, like some boots from Primark. And at this point, they had so many holes in them, like they were just so worn out, and I couldn't afford a new pair of shoes. And when I went to school, it was like the joke of the school, the joke of the classroom. Like, people kept saying, like, oh my God, you can see her toes through the shoe, like, take it off. And then they took the shoe off my foot and like were just pointing at the hole in it. And it was an entire situation. Like, my not being very well off was very, 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 very much emphasized even more in school. So I think the combination of all of it just got me so like addicted to doing literally whatever it possibly would take to just get to where I am now.
So what did you do? So from that girl with the kids sticking their fingers through to go, I'm not having this, and I will never be in this position again. What steps did you take?
Well, this is the first thing I ever did. So I've always sold things, like even as like a young teenager, and I used to love The Simpsons. So I used to like get a piece of paper and then sketch over Simpsons. I don't even know if this is like legal because it's like copyright maybe, I don't know. But I used to sketch over a magazine from The Simpsons and then make my own little Simpsons magazines and sell them to my classmates.
Proper entrepreneurial though, right?
I don't even think I sold. I think I sold one, and that was pretty much it. But I tried. And then also, like when I was a bit older, I would like try and sell like makeup and stuff or things like that, which was just a bit of a scam, to be honest.
You were trying. You were having early failures before actually you could argue it really mattered.
Absolutely. And I also worked with my mum a lot as well, just helping her out as much as I can. But I think what really took off wasn't when I was actually trying to make money, which is kind of funny. Like, it got to around end of high school, college time, and I was extremely lonely. Like, I didn't really have many friends. No one, everyone would just make fun of me or ridicule me. So I started feeling like very isolated. So I started posting things online, and I would see like maybe someone else that was also doing a bit of fitness. Maybe they felt isolated as well. And then I would start to speak to them. Like, this little community of girls started building very, very, very slowly. At first it was 2, 3, 4, 5. And it was like my only happiness in the day, because I would get to chat to like my online friends. This sounds really lonely, but I was very lonely at the time. And I would chat to all my online friends, and then I would keep posting more and more, because it was the only time I actually felt like I had friends or people to talk to. And just suddenly, like, that started growing and growing and growing, and I had no clue that you could even make money off of it. And then when I was still very, very early days, Gymshark noticed me, and it was very early on. Like, they just took me on and like kind of really helped me a lot at that stage, pushed me loads, and then I suddenly realized, like, whoa, you can actually make money out of this. This is different. So that's kind of how it began.
I love that. Do you know what I love as well? Social media can get a bad rep. You were a lonely, isolated girl that had been through, a load of crap to get to a point where you then were able to build a community that became your sort of tribe of like-minded people that you weren't necessarily having a conversation within the flesh, but that's the power of social media, right?
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
look what you've gone and done sitting here now. I don't know how many millions of followers you've got across all the platforms, but it's millions.
Yeah.
And you've built that without trying to make money. You've built that because you were a girl that wanted to aspire to follow your passion. And let's open that up.
Yep.
Fitness.
Yeah.
So you mentioned fitness, but you didn't say how you got into fitness. I want to know where the love of fitness came from. And was that some kind of escapism from the fact that you're right, okay, I wonder, because I'm just trying to piece that together, where you were on your own, so there's things you can do to help yourself. Is that where fitness fitted in?
Absolutely. Like I was very alone. Like I mentioned, like after school, I didn't really have anywhere to go or things to do. And I felt like, going to the gym, lifting weights or just running or literally doing anything at all exercise-wise, it was extremely helpful in getting my mind a bit clearer and in calming me down.
It's good for your mental fitness. So
Absolutely.
the physical fitness is good for your mental fitness.
Oh, absolutely. I feel like fitness is also one of the key things that really got me through that time, because all of the anger and like frustration and sadness and everything like that, I would just take out on the gym. And I think it's such a positive outlet as well for those emotions, because, it's very easy to take those emotions and then start doing things that aren't great, or being a person that you don't necessarily want to be, or kind of scooping to those people's levels and like firing back. And I felt like fitness was the one sort of escapism thing that I had, which really released all of those, like that just pent up frustration and like anger towards what everyone was doing to me. So yeah, I really have fitness to thank for that, actually.
Yeah, I can tell. And there's so many things we can do to keep fit. I know from seeing some of your socials that there's lots of things that you'll put out. You mentioned the weights and so on, but is there one thing you swear by? Because you are super fit. So someone, whether they want to stay fit or get fit, coming to you for sort of advice, what's the one thing that you make sure you keep doing?
Just absolutely weightlifting. I think it's just the best thing you could possibly do.
Why is that?
Because weightlifting, first of all, it's not something that's easy. It's something that you have to push yourself extremely hard to do. And also for the long-term benefits, like when I'm older, like it helps you lift yourself up off a chair, or it helps you, carry the groceries back into the house, or it just helps you actually move around in your day-to-day life. And also I feel like you can really go heavy, and it can really sometimes hurt, which sounds a little bit crazy, but I think if you've got loads of pent up like frustration, it's amazing. Like either that or like long distance running can also be really good as well. But
so there's the cardio element,
there's
and
the
then there's
cardio
that.
element.
Because I remember reading quite recently that weightlifting is really good from a grip point of view, and then there's now studies showing that the strength of your grip determines your actual overall fitness.
Really?
Yeah.
That's
so if you think
amazing.
about an older person getting out of a chair or pulling yourself up, if they've actually got that strength that clearly can come from weightlifting.
Yeah,
they're much fitter, they're much stronger.
I feel like the longevity is such a massive factor in terms of why I feel like people should start. Mental clarity, the anxiety, like I can be a very anxious person. I think because of my upbringing, like I'm a worrier, like I overthink everything. I'm super anxious, but when I've been going to the gym consistently, I'm calm, I'm relaxed, I'm focused. It's just an entirely different me,
I want to fast forward because I'm really sort of hung up on this girl that was so badly bullied and so on right now.
Yeah.
With, I guess, some validation and a little bit of that, two fingers up to the people that really were horrible to you and so on. Is there a contentment without any arrogance, because you clearly haven't got that at all, but is there something about you that you can really acknowledge you've come a long way and you've built that community of people that you are clearly not lonely anymore,
I feel like, actually going back to that, my perspective on the whole thing has changed a lot, because obviously I'm a lot older now. I'm a lot more mature. I have, a lot more experience under my belt, as you could say. And I don't look back in anger, or I don't look back, because I used to be really angry towards them. I used to hate them so much for like, why would you do this to me?
I can understand that as well.
Yeah, of course. But now I feel like my entire perspective has changed. Like I feel genuinely so bad for them, because I feel like hurt people, and my entire perspective has changed on that. And I actually, I look back and I have a lot of sympathy for them, even though they were the wrong ones who wronged me. I'm sure they had a lot of things going on in their lives too. I feel like, perhaps if you've got abusive parents, for example, like that can really, now that I know more about like narcissistic abuse and a lot more on that side too, because of some past relationships I've had. But there's a lot that goes into why people do what they do. And I feel like it's not so black and white anymore. So if they are watching, like, I don't hate them. I feel like we all have our different paths to learn from and all have our lessons.
And they help shape you, right? You're the tough, resilient girl with maturity and perspective, as you say, to look at that now. And your relationship with social media, we sort of touched on it. So coming at it from a point of view as a dad, and someone that uses it myself, right? You know, it can be a force for good. You know, look at how you're using it and putting out educational, inspirational content. And then there's the addictive algorithms and the doom scrolling, right? Yeah. So I wonder where you sit with it, because you've been able to build a personal brand and a business on the back of it. And I love the fact that you didn't aspire to set out to make money out of it. That came to you. Yeah. But someone that's trying to manage that, you know, and perhaps is caught up in this doom scrolling and sort of trapped and too afraid to put themselves out there. And I really relate this to my own two daughters, because you at some point made a decision to not be worried about being judged.
Yeah.
You put content out and you were like, this is what I want to do, and let's see where it lands. And I want to know the advice you give to someone that just is too afraid to do that.
I feel like obviously because I was already alone and already isolated, I had nothing to lose.
So you're kind of almost on the bottom.
I was already at rock bottom. Like if people online hated me, hey, what's another person to say bad things about me? Like I had already experienced all of it. So it was impossible for it to hurt me. And I feel like actually that's why I'm so good at dealing with hate now, because there's lots of it. Like every single day I get, you know, a terrible comment by a random person that doesn't even know me. But I feel like I'm very good at dealing with that now because of those experiences. But it is very hard to start if you don't know how to deal with that, because social media can be a very nasty, horrible place. Like disgustingly bad in some corners of the internet.
Well, people can hide, right?
Oh God,
can come from, you know, they could be ulterior motives. It could be a competitor that wants to knock you off your throne because you're now doing judgment. You know, people want to knock you out.
I feel like there's absolutely no empathy when it comes to social media, because they don't see a human. They see a screen, like someone on the screen that they'll think that you'll never read their comment anyways. But it can get awfully nasty in the comment section. Sometimes I just don't read them. But I try and remind myself, like, there's no point trying to please everyone. It's impossible. It's a task that will never happen. If you're, for example, like when I'm speaking about fitness and everything, sometimes I'll be bulking. And a bulk is where you purposely try and gain weight so that you can gain more muscle. And then loads of comments will be like, she's so fat, she's so this, she's so that. And then maybe another time where I'm like getting lean because I'm trying to lose that fat, everyone will be like, oh my God, she looks ridiculously skinny, like she's anorexic, give this girl a noodle. You can't win. And I think that's what I try to tell people, like, if you go into this trying to please anybody, you're doomed from the beginning, because there is no such thing on social media, outside of social media. It's impossible. You just
really
have
good
to
advice.
Do what feels right to you and what you're proud of. And if you're proud of it, that's all that matters.
It feels like you stayed authentic. You're just super very much being you right now. There's no facade, exactly the same before we started filming to now.
Thank you.
I want to get your sort of perspective on this. I think over 70% of Gen Z coming through now want to be an influencer.
Yeah.
I would say that, you know, unless you correct me, that a lot of what you do is influencing. Mm-hmm. And so I want to know why you think so many people want to come through, because you're reaping the benefits of being an influencer. You've got to put up with the Wild West horrible comments as well. So why do 70% of all kids coming through education now want to do what you're doing?
It's a hard question, but I feel like it's because it's what they see 24/7. They're on their phones 24/7. They're on TikTok 24/7. You know, they get home from school and they maybe just sit and watch YouTube videos. And I think the more things that you're exposed to, the more it becomes like something that you might want to do as well. And I think that's the only reason. I think it is just purely that they see it as maybe cool. Maybe they look up to people that do the same job and they're like, oh, I wish I could do that as well because it looks cool.
I get that.
I feel like with any job, no, regardless of the job, you know, even if it sounds like the most amazing thing in the world, there's always going to be caveats to it. There's always going to be negatives to it and things that you don't see, even to the day-to-day that is not on camera at all.
Well, let's touch on that, because that almost Insta versus reality. So you're a creator. So much of what you put out, you're creating. So that's again, entrepreneurial. So that's long days, potentially huge amount of hours. My point being, it's hard work. Whereas what can often be associated with is I've just been away on holiday and had a lovely time and so on. And that's a byproduct of the fact that you've also got to be creative. You've got to stimulate that to then put out content. How much of that is something you've had to work on, and as well as coming naturally, because you want to do it in an authentic way, and you do, which is why you can't get an audience without that. But almost the question, I suppose, is from an aspirational point of view, someone looking at you as a role model and wants to learn from you, what advice can you give them?
I like in regards to social media, like having it become a
Insta
job,
versus reality. So it
right.
looks like an amazing lifestyle. It looks incredible, and dare I say, almost looks easy. And but that's how it can come across. So what's the counter to that? Be prepared for.
Well, I really struggle to speak about my job negatively, because every time I do, it's an array of people being like, this is ridiculous, you don't have a real job, it's not a real job, all you do is just like do nothing in the day. I think the perception of it is very much so that I just sit around and do nothing.
But it's new.
It's
relatively new.
Because it's new,
but you come through it learning on the job.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
Dads, it could be in a position when they say, and I didn't mean to interrupt you, but I think it's so relevant to the term, that's not a real job.
Yeah.
Well, actually, it is.
Yeah.
And you're making a great living out of it, and you're proud of it. So
Absolutely.
There's a disconnect at the moment.
I think with anything that's new, this happens. Like, even, I wasn't around at this time, obviously, but my mum used to say, like, even when TV was first arising and there were TV broadcasters and everyone was like, oh, that's not a real job, that's not a real job. I think it happens with any scenario that you're in, any new thing that comes around that has no, track history, and you don't actually know the ins and outs of it. It all seems very silly and easy until you actually learn more about the position and more about what they actually do. And I hate to speak about it in a negative light, because I am so grateful and so lucky this is.
I think you're calling out the reality, though.
Yeah, of course.
And you're enjoying it. Whatever you do after today, it's all going to be in that space, because it's what you've learned it.
Absolutely.
And you're still learning it.
Yeah.
But you're flagging the fact that there are things that people should be aware of, right?
Absolutely.
And you've had that from a lived experience.
And it's definitely a hard job at times. Like, I feel like the balance is very difficult, because you're on your phone 24/7. Like, I could be working. Actually, most days I do work from the minute I wake up to the minute I go to sleep. Especially in the first few years when it was like my entire life and I had nothing else. I would just be on my phone 24/7, and I would never actually be out in the real world doing anything at any time. And the workload was absolutely massive. And I obviously enjoyed every second of it. I'm not saying that it's a difficult job by any means, but the hours that go into it can be absolutely exhausting. And the competition that you actually have, if you think about how many people want to do this job and how many people try to do this job, and the amount of content that's actually uploaded to social media per day, it's a huge competition at the moment.
Fighting for the attention,
oh my
right?
gosh, yeah, absolutely. And if you're, for example, if someone's posting twice a day and you're posting once a day, you're at a loss. Like, you're losing out, business almost.
How do you stay relevant in that? Because you are, and you're, I sort of want to know where your North Star is coming next. But there's people that come flying into our worlds on social media, and then they sort of disappear because they haven't been able to stay relevant. What are you doing that keeps you in that place?
Well, when I first started, because obviously I've been doing this job for 8.
You're a veteran.
I was here at the beginning, basically. But 8, 9 years, a very, very, very long time. And a lot of people that were really big at the time that I was growing in the space have completely disappeared now. And having that relevancy and staying successful in the space is incredibly difficult. Getting into it, having one viral video, easiest thing in the world.
It's then staying there and elevating,
the
right?
consistency of staying up there is extremely, extremely hard. And I feel like that's what people don't realize. It's very, very, very easy to get a few followers, but it's very extremely difficult to keep the attention of those people at the same time. I think what I've done is I've constantly evolved with the platforms, because a lot of people were, very routine about just the exact same type of content over and over and over again. And if something were to change in the algorithm, or TikTok came up, or maybe the type of content style was, different, or people wanted more authenticity, they would keep doing the same thing that they worked initially.
Worked for them,
exactly. And I
because
think
you know how to evolve.
That's the exact
That's
thing.
a skill.
that's the exact thing I did the complete opposite of. I was like, okay, if TikTok's coming around, cool, let's do TikTok. YouTube, if my views are down for 1 minute, I don't think like, oh, the platform just hates me, like I'm just doomed, let me just quit my job. I actually think like, okay, what am I doing that's not quite right in this? Let's look at the people that are doing well right now and not copy, but take inspiration from them. See what they're doing that's different to how I used to do things. I think if you get in any business, social media is all, not different to that. If you get caught up in just your way of doing things and your initial way that worked initially, you're doomed. Like you need to keep up, especially with social media being such a fast platform and it's just changing every single day. If you don't keep up with it, you don't have a job anymore.
No.
So I think it's just really staying up to date with the changes and not trying so hard to go against them.
I think you've articulated that really well. I think
Thank you.
one thing that's now in my brain is all that moving around as a young Bela and not having stability potentially has also helped you as well, where you never got used to, that whole like, if you change schools once, it's a massive moment where you're in and out of school. So actually you don't settle on something and go, this is how it works. I need to, almost that sort of not putting yourself out your comfort zone. You're constantly looking to see, well, actually, I've got to keep moving.
Yeah, absolutely.
So what is your sort of North Star? You've achieved a huge amount as we sit here now. Mm-hmm. What's the sort of purpose and passion that you're sort of taking a view on over the next few years? Where do you want to get to? Well,
it's actually changed quite a lot as well. It's interesting you bring that up because, I started off very community focused. I sort of grew, and then there was maybe a year or so where, let's say, the numbers weren't quite the same or like things weren't quite the same. And I think I got so caught up in that and I completely lost the fact that numbers don't matter in regards to you're the most successful and you're the most relatable and people like you the most when you're just your genuine self. And that's when you're going to find your crowd.
So you got distracted and swayed by the numbers and the money.
It really distracted me because I think when you've been doing it for so many years and you're used to like 1 million views a video and then that million drops down to 200,000, I think it can really, it's like having like a clothing business and like your numbers are just cut, in a quarter. So that really kind of swayed me into focusing on the wrong thing. And the more I focused on that, the worse and worse and worse.
Going down the wrong route. How cool that you recognise that though, right? Yeah. And did someone advise you, I don't want to jump in, but you've been lonely before at times and isolated. Mm-hmm. Have you got a team around you now? Are you working this right on your head, but drawing on the experience and the feedback from learning on the job? I'm just wondering how much of this is you recognising, having the knowledge and the skill to go, hey, I've lost my direction because of this.
I actually, I do have an assistant at the moment, but I journal a huge amount. If there's any time that I'm frustrated or I feel like I don't understand what's happening, I feel like just speaking to yourself, even though that sounds very weird.
Not at all.
Sometimes I'll just talk to myself or I'll, be journaling for however many hours it takes for me to understand what's happening. And I could spend like an entire day, 8 hours, 9 hours, 10 hours just writing. And then at the end of that, it's just kind of like it just suddenly clicks and I'm like, wait a minute. This is where I'm going wrong, that's where I'm going wrong. I feel like self-awareness is probably one of the most important tools you can possibly have as a person. And even for business as well, if you're not self-aware and you're just blaming everything externally, like, oh, it's the algorithm's fault, it's this platform's fault, it's TikTok's fault, it's this, it's that, like you're constantly making excuses for your own inability to keep up with the changes. And if you can't do that, then you're not going to continue to grow.
It's brilliant. I love the proper growth mindset, that. And on that, you have been phenomenally successful and you've done it all from effectively nothing. Sitting here now, how would you define success?
I think success it's not a number, it's not an amount of money, it's not a type of house. I think success is where you feel the most fulfilled. Like I've gotten to a place where I was making a ridiculous amount of money and I was so unhappy because I was not doing social media in the way that was fulfilling to me. I was posting for numbers and that was it.
So this is when you lost your direction.
This is when I lost my direction.
Isn't it interesting that then tapered off though?
Yeah, absolutely.
So it peaked, I guess, and then you started to do it for the wrong reasons and then actually very quickly that drops
It
off.
was when I peaked that I was like, oh, okay, like let's just keep doing that. And
You can see why you would though, right? It's a massively valuable lesson to anyone watching or listening. Stay true to your purpose and enjoy what you're doing.
And to yourself. And for that year that I really sort of fell off, this was maybe 4 years ago, you know, the income was a lot less, everything really changed from that. And it's only when I started to forget about the numbers, forget about the income, forget about all of it again, and just go back to the reason why I actually started this job, which was community, the girls that I speak to on the daily, you know, posting videos that are really real and raw, like times where I'm crying or feeling uncomfortable, like just real life stuff that people are scared to post. That's when just everything went absolutely crazy again.
So not being afraid to be vulnerable.
Not being afraid to be
yourself.
Very raw, and you're going to get a huge amount of bad comments, but you're also going to get a extraordinary crowd of people that just love you for who you are and are supportive of that side of you. So I think doing it for the right reasons and being fulfilled is a million times better than any money. And when you are fulfilled and when you are happy, the money just comes, you know. When you're doing something that you love, you never have to worry about money because it will just come to you. I really believe that.
Well, you're proving it.
Yeah.
You know, and I think it's that. I think we're all craving authenticity. It's the one criteria I have for anyone I want to talk with, because you can learn. I'm learning so much from you, and I think if you get distracted, you go, and I can clearly see why you would in that capacity. I don't know how I would deal with that. It's suddenly like this is working to make money, but actually it takes you off the direction of where you really want it to be.
Absolutely.
I've still got this image in my head, and I don't want to go back to an end almost on a sort of a negative, but just very much that young version of yourself where you were so lost and you were so isolated and lonely, to now being someone that has a community around it that supports, that is proud and happy to be themselves, put themselves out there. If you could talk to a younger version of yourself, give advice to the girl that was moving schools, crying every night, what would it be? I feel emotional about it because I can tell you've been through it. It's amazing now to be able to sit with you thriving and killing it. But I know that you've had to go through it. So I suppose it's just that whole, you're a role model. So that allows you to be influencing just one person watching or listening that you could make a difference to. And how much would you have loved to have had that when you were on your own?
I think the biggest thing I would, if I could actually speak to myself, is and go back in time, I would definitely say that things don't last forever. Things pass, and it will shape you as a person in the best way possible. And I think to every terrible, awful situation that sometimes I would, you know, just this awful emotions that, you know, no 11, 12-year-old should ever really feel or experience on the day-to-day. However, sometimes through pain there's growth. And I would tell myself that, like, every single time you come across horrible people or bad experiences, or there's no food on the table, or like you're just going through the worst, look at it as the best thing ever, because the more you experience, the better a person you'll become, and the better of a life experience you'll be able to have, and the more passion you'll have for doing the opposite and for being a better person than those nasty people, or for being able to provide for your mum after she's gone through so much struggle to, you know, get you where you are. I would tell myself to go into every experience with a smile on my face, even though it's very difficult to do. But I would tell myself that at the end of this...
You can aim to do that though, right?
Absolutely. You can try and frame everything with a positive mindset, not looking at it as, you know, the worst situation, but looking at it as like, looking at it and thinking, how can I grow from this? What kind of person can I become from this? What lesson can I take from this? How can I teach my kids to act in these situations? And I think every painful moment has some really beautiful things at the end of it. So
it's awesome. You are an inspiration.
Thank
you know, and I think, you know, you're the person that you are today because of the things you've had to go through, and I think that's a really valuable lesson. Right? You know, I can relate to that in my own way. There are very many reasons why I wouldn't be sat here now if things had continued to go really well in different scenarios that were really difficult at the time, and then actually, you know, you grow and you sort of develop skills that you wouldn't have needed to. And so I'm really sorry I took you back to that, but that was a super inspirational message that, you know, someone in a dark place could hear and it could change. And I think as a parent as well, I go out of my way to try and make sure that my two kids don't actually have hardship and so on, but it's not actually always the best. They need to be trials and tribulations
absolutely
that build you.
It must be really hard as a parent though to watched them go through.
That's why I asked you about your mum.
Yeah.
When I said, when you were coming home crying, it's heartbreaking.
Oh yeah, she would try and go to the school and speak, but the more she tried to help, the worse it got.
But at least you knew she was trying to help. And then at that point, because if she hadn't tried to help, which some kids have that, right? It could be for different reasons, but the parents just aren't, they're not looking out for them. Then you'll probably, you realise you had to work it out for yourself, and you have. And you're a role model, you're an inspiration. And I was so looking forward to this conversation. I don't want it to come to an end, but we've run out of time. But I've so enjoyed.
Thank you so much for having me. I really, really, really appreciate it.
I appreciate
Thank you so much.
So thank you.